Picture this. 13 years. 13 long, echoing years. That's how long Nick and Melissa had walked hand in hand through life, building a home, sharing dreams, but one dream, the most primal, the most yearned for, remained cruelly out of reach. A child. Not a whisper of one, not a fleeting hope dashed by miscarriage, just silence. A silence so profound, so heavy, it felt like a physical presence in their beautiful, yet achingly empty home. Every sunrise brought a fresh wave of hope, a whispered prayer. Maybe this month. But this month bled into next month, and next month stretched into next year, until a staggering 13 years had passed them by. Can you even imagine? The calendar pages turning, seasons changing, friends celebrating baby showers and first birthdays, while Nick and Melissa were stuck in a heartbreaking loop of longing. That ticking clock? For them, it wasn't just a metaphor, it was a deafening drumbeat, each tick a reminder of what they didn't have, each talk a measure of fading hope. Now, Nick's family, oh honey, they weren't the type to just sit back and watch this unfold with quiet sympathy. No, no, no. They were a force, a traditional whirlwind of expectation, and their patience, if they ever truly had any, had worn thinner than a threadbare sheet. So, one Sunday afternoon, a day usually reserved for lazy brunches or peaceful naps, the storm broke. The entire clan descended upon Nick and Melissa's home, uninvited, unannounced. We're talking uncles with stern faces that had seen too many winters, aunties whose whispers could cut deeper than a knife, and yes, even that one cousin, you know the type, the one whose business is everyone else's business and whose voice always seemed a few decibels too loud. They didn't come bearing casseroles or friendly smiles. Oh no. They came with agendas, with demands, their faces set like stone, their arms folded as if bracing for a battle they were determined to win. Nick was summoned. Yes, summoned, like a disobedient schoolboy called to the principal's office, into his own living room. The air crackled with unspoken accusations. His oldest uncle, a man whose cap seemed permanently affixed to his head as if it were a crown of authority, kicked things off. He adjusted that cap, a nervous tick that always preceded a pronouncement of grave importance. "Nick," he began, his voice devoid of warmth, "we are not here to play games, to waste precious time. We've waited. Lord, how we've waited. 13 years is more than enough. We want a child, Nick, a legacy, not some storybook marriage that ends with you two." Another auntie, her lips curled into a smile that was pure sarcasm, chimed in, "Is it a sin to want grandchildren to bounce on our knees, to hear the pitter-patter of little feet carrying on the family name? Or has the world changed so much that basic desires are now forbidden?" They all nodded, a synchronized wave of agreement, like a panel of judges delivering a verdict that had been decided long before the trial even began. Nick sat there, absolutely stunned. You could have knocked him over with a feather. He ran a hand through his hair, his mind reeling. But I love my wife," he stammered, his voice barely a whisper, a desperate plea against a tidal wave of familial duty. One of the uncles let out a dry, humorless laugh that echoed unpleasantly in the sudden quiet. "Love? Love, Keeney? What is this love you speak of? Will love carry on the family name when you are 6 feet under? Will love inherit your property, your legacy? Will you call love your heir, Nick?" Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. Nick's heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. He loathed the very idea, the disrespect to Melissa, the intrusion. But their words, sharp and relentless, had found their mark. 13 years, no child, the fear, a cold serpent, coiled in his gut. What if he truly did die without an heir? What if his name, his lineage, just ended? He swallowed hard, the sound unnaturally loud in the tense room. I will think about it," he finally conceded, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. But oh, the cruelty of fate. Unknown to him, to any of them, Melissa was standing just down the hallway, frozen mid-step. A statue carved from shock and disbelief, a tray of drinks still clutched in her trembling hand, forgotten. She had heard it all, every single, brutal word. Tears pricked at her eyes, hot and furious, but she fought them back with a will of iron. Not here, not now. Her chest felt tight, like a vice was squeezing the air from her lungs. The man she loved, the man who had once whispered, "You are enough for me, Melissa. You are my everything," had just promised his overbearing family that he would consider bringing another woman into their lives, into her home. Another woman, the thought screamed in her mind. A second wife in my own house. A brittle, forced smile stretched her lips as she turned, a slow, deliberate retreat back to the kitchen. The tray, forgotten in her turmoil, slipped from her numb fingers. It crashed to the floor, ceramic shattering into a million pieces, a violent punctuation mark to her silent agony. But it wasn't the sound of the breaking plate that truly broke her. It was the shattering of her heart, the deafening sound of her world crumbling around her. When the family finally dragged their long, disapproving faces out the door, like mourners leaving a funeral they'd orchestrated, the house fell into a different kind of silence. Not peaceful, but heavy, pregnant with unspoken words, the kind of quiet that hangs in the air just before a hurricane makes landfall. Nick stood by the window, arms crossed, his shoulders slumped, the weight of their demands pressing down on him. Then Melissa walked in, slowly, deliberately. Her footsteps were unnervingly calm, but her eyes, her eyes were blazing with a firestorm of pain and fury. She didn't utter a word at first, just stood there, staring at him. This man she had given 13 years of her life to, the man who now seemed like a stranger. Nick turned, and their eyes locked. "Melissa," he began softly, his voice laced with uncertainty, unsure what tempest was about to break. She laughed. But it wasn't the sweet, melodious laugh he knew. This was a bitter, jagged sound, a laugh that clawed its way out of a place of deep, festering pain. "Oh, so now you call my name gently? Like I'm your precious baby? When did I become invisible in my own marriage, Nick? When did my feelings stop mattering?" His heart skipped a beat. "Melissa, please." "Shh." She raised a finger, silencing him. "Let me talk. I have earned the right to talk. I stood by you for 13 years, Nick. 13. Even when people mocked me, whispered behind their hands that I was barren, a dry tree, I held my head high and said, 'My husband loves me. We'll be fine.' I wore shame like a second skin, like a dress I couldn't take off, just to keep our home, our marriage together. We built this life from scratch, Nick, brick by painful brick. I've been with you through thin and thick, through feast and famine. And now you sit there in our living room and promise those vultures that you'll think about marrying another woman, right here, in this house we built together." Nick sighed, a sound heavy with exhaustion and exasperation. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under, Melissa." "Oh, I don't understand?" she snapped, her voice cracking like a whip. "I'm the one they point at in the market, the one they call Barren Mama. I'm the one whose friends whisper behind her back, their pity more painful than their scorn. I'm the one who kneels every midnight, lighting candles, tears streaming down my face, begging God for a miracle while you snore beside me like a generator, oblivious." His voice rose then, a defensive roar. "So what do you want me to do, Melissa? Huh? Pretend I don't have a family breathing down my neck, demanding an heir? What if I die tomorrow, Melissa? Who will carry my name? Who will inherit what I've worked my entire life for?" She recoiled as if struck, clutching her chest. "So that's it," she whispered, the fight suddenly draining from her, replaced by a chilling clarity. "That's what this is all about. Not love, not us, just your precious name, your legacy." He turned away, unable to meet her gaze. "You make it sound so easy." "And you?" she shot back, her voice cracking with unshed tears. "You make it sound like I'm the problem, like my womb is the only thing standing between you and immortality. Did it ever, ever cross your mighty patriarchal mind, Nick, that maybe, just maybe, it's you who can't have children?" The words hung in the air, heavy and damning. Nick froze, every muscle in his body tensing. The room fell utterly silent, save for their ragged breaths. He turned back, slowly, his face a mask of shock, pale and drawn. "Melissa, what did you just say?" She laughed again, that broken, bitter sound, already walking away, the tears finally falling, hot and unrestrained. "Don't worry about it, Nick. I'm just the useless woman, right? I'm the one with the empty womb. You all get to sit on your broken thrones and cast blame, while we women just have to bear it." He followed her, his own voice softer now, tinged with a dawning horror. "Don't talk like that, Melissa. Please. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was only—" "No, Nick," she whispered, her eyes swimming in a sea of sorrow. "You did. You broke me. Tonight, you shattered what was left, and I don't even recognize the man I married anymore." His lips trembled, his own voice cracked. "I'm sorry, Melissa. I don't know what to do." They stood there, two broken souls adrift in a sea of unspoken pain, surrounded by the ghosts of their shared memories, the silence punctuated only by the absence of a child's laughter. Then, in a twist that Nick could never have anticipated, something shifted in Melissa. A strange calm settled over her features. She slowly, deliberately, took his hands. Her touch was cool, almost unnervingly steady. "If you must," she said, her voice gentle, almost soothing. "If you absolutely must have a second wife, let me choose her." Nick stared at her as if she'd sprouted a second head. You what?" he stammered, utterly bewildered. "Let me be the one to pick the woman," she repeated, a sad, enigmatic smile playing on her lips. "Someone who won't tear us apart. Someone who will understand our situation. Someone I can trust." His mouth opened, then closed. No words came. All he could do was stare, completely flummoxed by this bizarre, unexpected offer. He didn't know it then, couldn't possibly fathom it, but Melissa's heart, bruised and battered, was already hatching a plan. Something twisted. Something born of desperation and a deep, simmering resentment. Something he would never, ever expect. And so, the stage was set. The first seeds of a devastating drama were sown, watered by tears of betrayal and the suffocating pressure of tradition. Melissa, the scorned wife, was about to take control, but her path, my friends, was leading them all into a darkness far deeper than Nick could ever imagine. The game was afoot, and the players were being chosen, not by fate, but by a woman pushed to the very brink. This, besties, was just the beginning of the storm. So Melissa, with that strange, unnerving calm, had made her declaration. She would choose Nick's second wife. And who, you ask, did she have in mind for this unique honor? Oh, it's a twist that will make your stomach clench. 3 days later, picture this. Melissa, cloaked in designer sunglasses that couldn't quite hide the storm brewing in her eyes, sat in her car outside a quiet university campus. Her fingers tapped a frantic rhythm on the steering wheel, a ticking time bomb of anxiety and steely resolve. She wasn't there for a nostalgic stroll down memory lane or a charitable donation. No, darling. She was there for war, dressed in perfume and armed with a plan so cold it could freeze fire. Her gaze locked onto a young woman, laughing with a friend, books clutched to her chest, radiating the easy, breezy confidence of youth. This was Amelia. Sweet, innocent Amelia, a girl whose life had been tragically upended when her parents died in a horrific accident. And who had swooped in like a guardian angel? Melissa. Melissa had picked Amelia up from the ashes of her grief, paid her school fees, bought her clothes, given her a life of comfort, a life Amelia could only have dreamed of. Amelia, in turn, looked up to Melissa as a mother, a savior, her mommy. Melissa's chest tightened as she watched Amelia. "Look at her," a bitter voice whispered in her mind. "So full of life, not a care in the world, just one womb, and she's already more useful in my own home than I am." The venom in that thought was potent. She stepped out of the car, her smile plastered on, a mask of warmth. "Amelia," she called out, her voice deceptively gentle. Amelia's face lit up like a Christmas tree. "Mommy!" she exclaimed, rushing into Melissa's arms for a hug. "Wow, what a surprise. I didn't know you were coming. Are you okay?" Melissa's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. It was tight, calculated. "Get in the car, Amelia. We need to talk." The ominous tone was unmistakable. Minutes later, silence hung heavy in the car, thick with unspoken tension. Melissa finally broke it, her voice low, almost a hiss. "I need a favor from you, Amelia. And this isn't one of those buy bread for me kinds of favors. This is serious, life-altering." Amelia's bright smile faltered. "Okay, Mommy. What is it?" Melissa turned, her gaze pinning Amelia like a butterfly to a board. "I want you to marry my husband." The air in the car instantly turned to ice. Amelia blinked, her mind struggling to process the words. "Wait, what? Marry Nick? Your husband?" "You heard me," Melissa confirmed, her voice devoid of emotion. "I want you to become Nick's second wife. For children." Amelia's jaw practically hit the dashboard. Are you joking? Mommy? Nick? That man is like a father to me. I call him Daddy." The sheer absurdity, the wrongness of it, was overwhelming. Melissa leaned closer, her voice dropping to an icy whisper. "Well, Daddy needs an heir, Amelia, and you're going to give him one." Amelia shook her head, panic rising in her like a tidal wave. No, this is wrong. I can't do this. I respect you, I love you. I can't betray you like this." Melissa let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Betrayal? Oh, sweet, naive girl. Betrayal is what my in-laws are doing to me right now, sitting in my house, drinking my wine, and plotting to replace me like I'm a broken piece of furniture. Betrayal is this empty womb that haunts my every waking moment." Amelia, terrified, reached for the door handle, desperate to escape this surreal nightmare. But Melissa's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist in a grip that was surprisingly strong, painfully tight. "Sit. Down." "Mommy, please, don't do this to me," Amelia begged, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, you think you're too holy for this, don't you?" Melissa sneered. "Too good to get your hands dirty? Let me remind you of a few things, Amelia. When your parents died, who was it that picked your broken body off the floor, figuratively speaking? Who paid your exorbitant school fees, bought you designer clothes, gave you a life of comfort and privilege, while my own heart was bleeding for a child I couldn't have?" Tears streamed down Amelia's face. "I'm grateful, Mommy. I truly am. More than words can say. But this is not right. I can't sleep with your husband. I can't." Melissa's eyes darkened, a dangerous glint appearing in their depths. "You already live in a house I pay the rent for. You dress like a queen because of my generosity. You're just 6 months away from graduating from that fancy university I enrolled you in, and I haven't asked for a single thing in return. Until now." Amelia sobbed, her body shaking. "But this will destroy everything between us. Our relationship, my future." Melissa smiled, a bitter, twisted expression. "What is there to destroy, Amelia? I've already lost myself. My husband is slipping away from me day by day. My home is becoming a courtroom where I'm constantly on trial. You can either help me salvage what's left, or you can stand by and watch me lose everything. The choice is yours." "Mommy, please," Amelia pleaded, her voice hoarse. Melissa's voice turned to ice. "Don't make me regret ever picking you up from the streets, Amelia. Don't make me remind you what the cruel world does to orphaned girls with no protection, no one to stand up for them." The threat, thinly veiled in feigned concern, hung heavy in the air. Amelia froze, the blood draining from her face. This wasn't a request anymore. It was an ultimatum, wrapped in tears and manipulation. Melissa then softened her approach, a calculated shift in tactics. She touched Amelia's face gently, her touch now a chilling mockery of maternal affection. "I'll talk to Nick. You just show up when I say. You won't be a second wife in the traditional sense. You'll be my sister, my helper, my surrogate in a way. You do this for me, Amelia, and I will never, ever forget it. You will secure your future, and you will save mine." Amelia wiped her tears, struggling to breathe through the shock and the crushing weight of obligation. Then, with trembling lips, she played her last card, a desperate plea. "Mom, but you know about my relationship with Dale." She looked Melissa straight in the eyes, begging her to remember, to show some mercy. "He loves me, Mom. He wants to marry me after I graduate. We've been through so much together." Her voice cracked, thick with emotion. "It will be unfair, so unfair, to break his heart like this." She slowly, agonizingly knelt before Melissa in the cramped confines of the car, tears streaming down her face like a torrential flood. "Please, Mother, please don't take the only real love I have ever known away from me." Silence. A deadly, suffocating silence. Then, Melissa's nostrils flared. She turned her head slowly, deliberately, like a lioness preparing to strike. "Real love?" she scoffed, a bitter, mocking laugh escaping her lips. "Real love, Amelia? Oh, let me tell you something cruel and unforgiving about life, my dear girl. Real love doesn't pay the bills. Real love doesn't mend a broken womb. And guess what, Amelia? Real love will not save my marriage." Amelia sobbed harder, her shoulders shaking. "But you always said I was like a daughter to you. How can you ask me to destroy my own happiness, my own future, just for a family affair that isn't even mine?" Melissa slammed her hand on the steering wheel, the sudden violence making Amelia jump. "Because you are mine," she hissed, her face contorted with a possessive fury. I made you visible. I put light on your name. You think that boy, Dale, saw you because you're just some ordinary girl? No. He saw you because of the polish I put on you, the beauty I cultivated, the opportunities I provided. Wake up, girl. I fed you, I clothed you, I sent you to the best schools. If I had left you on that street that day, with your parents' blood still fresh on the pavement, you would have been forgotten by now. A statistic. An obituary no one would even bother to read." Amelia looked up at her, wounded to her very core by the venom in Melissa's words. But Melissa wasn't finished. She leaned in close, her voice now lower, deadlier, each word a poisoned dart. "Dale will survive. He'll cry. Maybe he'll write a long, dramatic message on his WhatsApp status for a couple of days, get some sympathy from his friends, and then he will move on. But me?" She thumped her chest hard. "I can't move on without this. You are my only hope, Amelia. My only weapon to silence those vultures in my husband's family. You want to talk about love? This is love. Sacrificial love. If you truly love me as your mother, if you have an ounce of gratitude in your body for everything I've done for you, you will do this." Amelia was shaking uncontrollably, a trapped animal. Melissa sat back, wiped her own crocodile tears, and whispered with a final, chilling venom, "You owe me, Amelia, and if you say no to me, if you dare to defy me after all I've done, I swear on my own life, I will regret ever saving yours." Amelia collapsed against the car seat, weeping like a broken child. The woman she had called Mommy, her savior, her confidant, had become her worst nightmare. And the most terrifying part? She didn't know if she even had a choice. The weight of obligation, of manufactured debt, was crushing her. Fast forward 3 weeks. Melissa, the puppet master, had decided it was time. She had prepared Amelia meticulously, like a sacrificial lamb being readied for the altar. New clothes, subtle makeup, even a new hairstyle. Amelia looked beautiful, stunning even, but her eyes were hollow, dead inside. That evening, Melissa told Nick to come home early, her voice laced with an unusual sweetness that should have been a red flag. Nick, unsuspecting, walked into the living room. Then, Amelia emerged from the hallway, her eyes glued to the floor, a vision of reluctant beauty. Nick, confused, asked, "Amelia, what's she doing here dressed like Miss World?" Melissa cleared her throat. "She didn't come for a visit, Nick. She came for you." She took Amelia's hand and pulled her forward. "She's the one I told you about. The one I want you to marry." The silence that followed was so profound, you could hear a pin drop. Then, Nick exploded. "No! Melissa, you've lost your mind. Amelia? The same girl who calls me father?" He turned on Amelia, his voice thundering. "And you! How dare you agree to this madness?" Amelia just knelt, sobbing. Melissa, in a dramatic display, broke down, clinging to Nick, crying about doing it for us. A quiet, almost reluctant wedding followed weeks later. No music, no joy, just paperwork and whispers. Amelia moved into the guest wing, isolated. And then, besties, the universe decided to throw another grenade into this already explosive situation. 6 months passed, and then 9. No pregnancy for Amelia. The tension was unbearable. Melissa, whose own biological clock was apparently still ticking with a vengeance, snapped. She accused Nick, screaming, "So you are the problem, Nick. Your family dragged me for 13 years and now your new saint isn't even pregnant." Just as this new wave of despair hit, something miraculous, or perhaps catastrophically complicated, happened. Amelia, one day, supervising dinner, suddenly collapsed, throwing up violently. Rushed to the hospital, the doctor delivered the news Nick had longed to hear for over a decade. "Congratulations, your wife is pregnant," Nick cried, actual tears of joy streaming down his face. But hold on to your hats, because the roller coaster was just hitting another peak. As they walked into the house that evening, filled with relief and a fragile new hope, Melissa, who had been coming down the stairs, suddenly tripped. She fell, hard, groaning in pain. Another frantic rush to the hospital. 3 hours later, the doctor emerged, a bewildered look on his face. "Sir, congratulations again. Your other wife is also pregnant, about 6 weeks along." "What?" Nick sat down, his head spinning. "Melissa? Pregnant? After 13 years? Now?" Melissa just smiled, a quiet, knowing, almost sinister smile, and whispered, "Now let's see who gives birth first." And with that, besties, the dynamic shifted entirely. 2 pregnant women under one roof, one carrying a baby of hope, the other a baby of, well, we were about to find out. Melissa, now with a child in her own womb, transformed overnight. The woman who had begged, manipulated, and threatened Amelia into this marriage suddenly became her worst nightmare. There was no sharing the spotlight. There was no sisterly bond. Melissa didn't want Amelia's child to come first. She wanted to win, at any cost. The cruelty began subtly, then escalated. Amelia's belongings were moved to the servants' quarters. "You're a maid. Act like one," Melissa sneered. Amelia, pregnant and vulnerable, was forced to cook, sweep, wash, given bitter food, denied medical checkups. "Maybe if you miscarry, we'll finally find peace," Melissa whispered one night, her voice a venomous caress. Nick, tragically, was blind to it all. Melissa played the part of the doting, delicate pregnant wife perfectly in front of him, always holding her belly dramatically, her voice sweet as honey. But behind his back, she was a demon, tormenting Amelia relentlessly. This, my friends, was no longer just about having a child. This was a battle of wills, a toxic rivalry fueled by jealousy, desperation, and a darkness that was consuming Melissa from the inside out. 2 babies on the way, and a war raging within their home. The stakes had never been higher, and the peace, if it ever truly existed, was shattered beyond recognition. Stick around, because this story is far, far from over. So, picture this. Nick, bless his naive heart, was at his wit's end. His home, once a sanctuary, had become a war zone. 2 pregnant women, one radiating a quiet sorrow, Amelia, the other, Melissa, a simmering, possessive resentment that she expertly hid from him. He saw Amelia's distress, the way she seemed to shrink in Melissa's presence, but Melissa, oh, she was a master actress. In front of Nick, she was all sweetness and light, the picture of a slightly hormonal but ultimately loving wife, concerned for her sister wife. One morning, Nick, looking like he hadn't slept in weeks, called them both into the living room. His voice was heavy, strained. "My loves," he began, trying to project a calm he clearly didn't feel. "I know this situation, hasn't been easy on anyone. But I have to travel, South Africa, a new branch opening. I've pushed it, but as CEO I have to go. It's only for 2 weeks. Amelia's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of apprehension. Melissa, however, nodded slowly, her face an unreadable mask. "Please," Nick pleaded, his gaze shifting between them, but lingering on Melissa. "Especially you, Melissa. Let there be peace in this house while I'm gone. Amelia is pregnant. You are pregnant. This house needs peace, not pain. Can you promise me that?" And then, besties, Melissa delivered an Oscar-worthy performance. Her lips curved into the softest, most convincing smile. Her voice, oh, it was like warm honey, almost too sweet. "You're absolutely right, darling," she cooed. "Honestly, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. Life is too short for all this bitterness." She reached out a hand, her eyes glistening with what looked like genuine remorse. "Amelia, come sit beside me." Amelia, ever the trusting soul, looked at her with surprise, a glimmer of hope in her weary eyes. Nick, bless his cotton socks, encouraged her gently. "Go on, baby. Maybe this is the fresh start we all need." Slowly, cautiously, Amelia got up and sat beside Melissa. Melissa took her hand, rubbing it lightly, her touch seemingly filled with affection. "I am so sorry for everything I've done," Melissa whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Truly, Amelia. Let's go back to our first love, the way we used to laugh, the way we supported each other before all this. This baby matter came between us." Tears welled in Amelia's eyes, actual tears of relief. "Thank you, Melissa," she whispered back. "I've missed peace too. I've missed you." Nick smiled, a wave of overwhelming relief washing over him. He sat between them, taking both their hands in his. "Thank you both. You have no idea what this means to me. I promise, I'll return with gifts, the kind you both love." The 3 of them shared a quiet, hopeful laugh. The moment felt peaceful, too peaceful, like the eerie calm before a Category 5 hurricane makes landfall. The second Nick's plane was wheels up, besties, the charade kicked into high gear. Melissa turned to Amelia, her smile now dazzling, almost manic. "Baby girl," she chirped. "Do you still like that vanilla strawberry swirl ice cream we used to practically fight over whenever I visited you at school?" She giggled, like an old friend sharing a cherished memory. Amelia, understandably shocked by this sudden, drastic transformation, looked at Melissa's face as if seeing a completely new person. Yes, I do," she said softly, a mixture of uncertainty and cautious curiosity in her voice. "Good!" Melissa clapped her hands with an almost childlike enthusiasm. Go and get dressed. Today we are going out like sisters. No stress, no pregnancy drama, just you and me chilling like we used to. And so they did. They dressed up, two glowing pregnant women, looking for all the world like the best of friends. They cruised the city, Melissa at the wheel, regaling Amelia with funny stories, making her laugh, really laugh, for the first time in what felt like an eternity. At the ice cream joint, they giggled over shared sundaes, Melissa even playfully wiping a smudge of chocolate from Amelia's mouth like a caring older sister. They took selfies, arms around each other, their growing bellies touching, captions full of hearts and #sister love. After the ice cream, they strolled through a beautiful, serene relaxation garden. The flowers were in bloom, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves, birds sang their sweet melodies. Everything was peaceful, idyllic. At one point, they sat on a rustic wooden bench. Melissa, with a tender expression, placed her hand gently on Amelia's belly. "Wow," she said with a soft laugh. "Your baby kicks much stronger than mine. He's going to be a footballer, I can feel it." Amelia chuckled, her heart warming to this new, improved Melissa. "Or maybe a drummer, like Nick's late uncle," she replied, feeling a sense of camaraderie she hadn't felt in months. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just smiling, enjoying the moment, the illusion of peace. When they got home later that evening, the housemaids were whispering in stunned disbelief. "These madams have changed completely. Love is everywhere," one maid whispered to another. That night when Nick called, Amelia picked up, her voice light and cheerful. "We went out for ice cream, and then to the gardens. Melissa is treating me like a real sister, Nick. I'm so happy." Nick, on the other end of the line, almost cried with relief. Please keep this love alive. My heart is finally at peace," he said. The next day was even better. Melissa brought out old photo albums from Amelia's school days, and they spent hours laughing at old hairstyles and funny memories. They cooked together, their voices mingling in song. They even took an evening walk in their compound, hand in hand, like the dearest of friends. By the 5th day, Melissa had ordered matching outfits online. They wore them, danced around the living room like teenagers, and posted a video with the caption, "My sister, my soulmate, my pregnancy buddy, #blessed." Social media was buzzing. "Look at these two women, married to the same man but closer than actual sisters," people commented. "If this is what polygamy looks like, sign me up," some even joked. Melissa was smiling constantly. Amelia was glowing, her previous anxieties seemingly melting away. The house, once a battleground, was now filled with an almost suffocating sense of peace and harmony. On the 10th day of Nick's absence, after another morning filled with laughter and shared confidences, they decided to go out for a joint pampering session, manicures and pedicures. That afternoon, the house still felt warm and fuzzy from their outing. Amelia stood up, a faint, contented smile on her face. "You know," she said, "I'm suddenly craving some fresh mangoes and pineapple. I'll just quickly drive to the estate market and be back in a jiffy." Melissa, scrolling casually on her phone, nodded without looking up. "Okay, love. Drive safe. Don't be too long." Amelia stepped out, got into her small, reliable Toyota, and drove off, a happy tune on her lips. It was the last time anyone saw her. That evening, 6:40 p.m., rolled around. No sign of Amelia. Melissa, starting to look just a little concerned, called her phone. It rang out, unanswered. 7:15 p.m. Still no Amelia. "She just said she was going to buy fruits," Melissa murmured to the maids, her voice laced with a carefully calibrated worry, pacing the living room. By 8:30 p.m., the maids were starting to murmur amongst themselves. "Auntie Amelia never stays out this late. This is very strange." Nick's nightly call came in around 9 p.m. Melissa picked up, her voice now tight with feigned panic. "Hey, love, just checking in. How's everything?" Nick asked, his voice cheerful. Silence. Then, Melissa, her voice trembling. Nick. Amelia. She went to the market this afternoon. She hasn't returned. Nick's voice rose instantly, sharp with alarm. What do you mean she hasn't returned? What time did she leave? Around 3:30, Melissa stammered. We thought she'd be back by now. I've been calling her phone. And you're just telling me now? Nick roared, the panic clawing at his throat. Melissa tried to explain, to sound like the worried, helpless wife, but Nick had already cut the call, his mind racing, his heart pounding with a terrible premonition. He booked an emergency flight back that very night. The discovery was chilling. Around 11 p.m., security called from the estate gate. One of the maids, her face pale with fear, rushed to Melissa's room, panicking. Ma, they found Madame Amelia's car, on Orchid Close. They all rushed there. The car was parked awkwardly by the roadside, one door slightly ajar, an ominous invitation. The engine was cold. The bag of fruits Amelia had presumably bought sat innocently on the front passenger seat. But Amelia? Gone. Vanished into thin air. No trace, no phone. It was later found still in the car. No handbag, no note, nothing. No sign of a struggle. No fingerprints other than Amelia's. No blood. It was as if she had simply evaporated. 3 agonizing days later, Nick stormed into the compound, a man possessed. His face was a mask of dark fear and raw frustration, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep and unshed tears. The first thing he saw was the maids, huddled in a corner, sobbing. He strode straight into the house. "Where is she? Where is my wife?" he screamed, his voice echoing through the silent, fearful house. No one answered. Melissa, her face swollen and puffy from what appeared to be days of crying, stood slowly and ran into Nick's arms, collapsing against him. "Oh, Nick, I don't know what happened. I've been searching everywhere. We've checked the hospitals, we've called the police. She's just gone." Nick pushed her back, gently but firmly. His heart was a leaden weight in his chest. His head was spinning. 3 days, Melissa. 3 whole days, and no one has found my wife. The mother of my child is missing, and all I hear is silence and tears. He turned and punched the wall, a raw sound of anguish. What happened to her? Melissa crumpled to the ground, wailing like a child. I don't know, I swear, Nick, we were doing so well. We even went for ice cream. We were like sisters. Nick sank heavily onto the sofa, his hands clutching his head, the world tilting crazily around him. The sun rose on the 4th day, but it brought no joy, only a deeper, more suffocating fear. Sirens wailed as police combed the streets, searched bushes, knocked on doors. Drones buzzed overhead. Sniffer dogs barked, their eagerness turning to frustration. But still, nothing. Not a single trace of Amelia. Nick stood at the scene where her car was found, arms folded tightly, watching the futile efforts, feeling more helpless and enraged than he'd ever felt in his life. I should have never left, he whispered to himself, over and over, his lips trembling. God, I should have stayed. Back at the house, the atmosphere was thick with tension and whispered fears. Melissa, the grieving wife, couldn't cope. She barely ate, barely slept, barely spoke. 1 minute she was pacing like a caged animal, the next she was lying in bed, clutching her stomach, her breathing shallow and rapid. Then, on the second night after Nick's return, a sharp, piercing scream ripped through the quiet of the house from Melissa's room. The maids rushed in to find her clutching her side, sweat soaking her nightwear, her body shaking uncontrollably. Madame, what is it? I think something is wrong with the baby, she cried out, her face a mask of pain. They rushed her to the hospital immediately. Nick arrived just as they were wheeling her into the maternity emergency wing. Doctor, do something, please, he shouted, his voice hoarse with panic. The doctor tried to reassure him, but Nick wasn't listening. His brain was a chaotic storm. Amelia, his sweet, gentle Amelia, was missing, possibly dead. Now Melissa was collapsing. 2 unborn children, his children, or so he thought, were at risk. His entire world was crashing down around him like a house of cards in a hurricane. He sat in the sterile hospital corridor, head in his hands, not even blinking as tears rolled freely down his face. The strong, confident CEO was gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed shadow, haunted, tired, utterly lost. A nurse walked past, whispering to a colleague, "God help that poor man. He looks like he's carrying the weight of 10 worlds on his shoulders." Nick didn't even hear her. All he could whisper, over and over again, a desperate prayer, a heartbreaking lament, was one name. Amelia. Amelia, where are you? Little did he know, Amelia was alive, trembling on a dusty floor in an uncompleted building, her hands tied, her baby kicking softly, begging her captor for her life, for her baby's life, and the door was just about to creak open, revealing a face that would turn her terror into absolute, mind-numbing disbelief. The face of her supposed ex-lover, Dale. And then, the phone call. The call that would expose everything. Dale, on speaker, talking to Melissa in her hospital bed. "Babe, I just returned to town now," Dale said smoothly. "How's my baby doing?" And Melissa's voice, soft and smug, from her hospital bed, where Nick was no doubt hovering, full of concern. "He's doing fine. Everything is under control, just as planned. I distracted him so well. I'll be induced into labor any moment now." And then the horrifying instruction, "As soon as I'm discharged and we are on our way home, that's the right time to strike. You kill him and I automatically become your official wife. Are you done with that stupid girl?" Bang! Dale fired a shot into the air. And at that exact moment, Melissa screamed in her hospital bed. The perfect distraction. But honey, they didn't count on one thing. The police. An official walked into Melissa's private ward, calm as you please, and pulled out a small recording device hidden behind a plant. "We heard everything," he said, his eyes locking onto Melissa's paling face. "So, Madame Melissa, where is Amelia?" The monster, Besties, was finally, terrifyingly unmasked. And the game? It was about to come to a very abrupt, very dramatic end. So there we were, in that sterile hospital room. Melissa, pale as a ghost, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before her very eyes. The police official, calm and collected, holding up that damning recording device like a holy relic exposing a vampire. "We heard everything, Madame Melissa," he reiterated, his voice devoid of emotion but heavy with accusation. "The call, every single word. The plan to eliminate your husband after delivery, the setup, the distraction, everything. So I ask you again, where is Amelia?" Nick, who had been hovering by Melissa's bedside, a pillar of misguided concern, slowly stood up. You could practically see the gears grinding in his head, the pieces of this horrifying puzzle clicking into place with sickening clarity. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of disbelief and dawning horror. He turned to Melissa, his eyes wide, searching, begging for it not to be true. "Melissa," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Melissa, where is Amelia?" Before she could even attempt to spin another web of lies, before she could conjure up another tearful, manipulative performance, the door to the private ward burst open. A nurse rushed in, breathless, her eyes wide. Sir, Madame Amelia, she's just been brought in. She's very weak, but she's alive. They found her." Alive! The word hung in the air, a lifeline in a sea of despair. Nick didn't even spare Melissa a second glance. He bolted. He ran out of that room like his life depended on it, racing down the sterile hospital corridor, his footsteps echoing his frantic heartbeat. Moments later, he skidded to a halt at the entrance of the emergency ward. And there she was, Amelia, pale, frail, her clothes torn and dirty, but blessedly, miraculously conscious. Her hands were protectively cradling her swollen belly. And then, just as Nick's eyes met hers, A wave of relief so profound it almost buckled his knees, washing over him. Amelia's body arched. A raw, primal cry of pain tore from her lips. "She's in labor!" a doctor shouted, materializing out of nowhere. The medical team sprang into action, a whirlwind of controlled chaos, wheeling Amelia into the delivery room. Nick was left outside, pacing, a maelstrom of emotions churning within him. Melissa's unimaginable betrayal, a betrayal so deep it felt like his very soul had been ripped apart. Amelia's pain, her terror, her miraculous survival. And the child, his child, about to be born amidst this chaos, it was all too much for any one man to bear. Moments later, what felt like an eternity, a nurse emerged from the delivery room, her face wreathed in a tired but triumphant smile. "She's delivered safely, sir," she announced, her voice a balm to Nick's frayed nerves. "A handsome, healthy baby boy." Nick broke down. Right there in the hospital corridor, the strong, stoic CEO crumpled. Tears of overwhelming joy, of profound relief, of gut-wrenching sorrow for what Amelia had endured, streamed down his face. His knees felt weak, his hands shook uncontrollably. He entered the delivery room slowly, reverently. Amelia lay there, exhausted, her face luminous despite the pallor, a faint, beautiful smile gracing her lips. And nestled in her arms, wrapped in a soft blue blanket, was a tiny, perfect, precious baby boy, his son. Nick walked towards them, his steps unsteady, overwhelmed by a tidal wave of emotion. He dropped gently to his knees beside the bed, his gaze fixed on the miracle in Amelia's arms. "Thank you," he choked out, his voice thick with unshed tears. "Thank you for staying alive. Thank you for holding on, for fighting." Amelia's eyes, filled with a weary but profound love, met his. "I couldn't leave him," she whispered, her voice barely audible, nodding towards the baby. "Or you." Nick bent down and pressed a tender, lingering kiss to her forehead, then looked down at his newborn son, his eyes filled with a fierce, protective love and a quiet, steely determination. He had his son. He had Amelia. And he would move heaven and earth to protect them from the darkness that had almost consumed them all. Now, besties, let's rewind just a smidge to that dramatic kidnapping scene, because you need to know how our brave Amelia survived. She was trembling, tied up in that dusty, uncompleted building, begging her guard, Dale, yes, that Dale, her supposed ex-lover, for her baby's life. "Please," she whimpered, "even if you must kill me, let me give birth first." Dale, the cold-hearted snake, just scoffed. He was waiting for the boss to see her face before sending her to her grave. And who was the boss? Dale, with a smirk, pulled out his phone. "Let me call my madam before I pull the trigger," he'd said coldly. And that's when he made that fateful call to Melissa in the hospital, the call the police recorded, the call that blew their whole sickening plot wide open. Melissa, from her hospital bed, confirming everything, instructing Dale to kill Nick after she was discharged so she could become Dale's official wife. Can you even imagine the sheer audacity, the blackness of her heart? It was during that call, just after Dale fired that shot into the air, presumably to make Amelia think he'd killed her, or perhaps just to terrorize her further, that the police, who had already been alerted to Amelia's disappearance and were likely tracking Dale or had a tip-off, stormed the building. Amelia was rescued, shaken but alive, and rushed to the hospital, arriving just in the nick of time to deliver her baby boy. Talk about a divine intervention, besties. A week later. The atmosphere inside the police station was cold, sterile, and heavy with the weight of unspeakable crimes. Nick and Amelia, looking stronger, more united than ever, walked in slowly, led by an officer to an interrogation room. And there, behind a glass panel, sat Melissa and Dale, handcuffed, looking worn, defeated, the arrogance and malice stripped away, leaving only the hollow shells of two deeply flawed human beings. For a long, agonizing moment, nobody spoke. The silence in the room screamed louder than any words could. It was a silence filled with betrayal, with shattered trust, with lives irrevocably altered. Finally, Nick broke it, his voice low, trembling, not with fear, but with a profound, sorrowful anger. "Melissa," he began, his gaze boring into her. When did you become like this?" Melissa lifted her head slowly, her eyes, red-rimmed and haunted, meeting his. She blinked rapidly, trying to stop the tears that threatened to spill. "Nick," she began, her voice barely a whisper, raspy and raw. I caused everything." Nick furrowed his brows, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. What could she possibly mean? Melissa continued, the shame thick in her throat, each word a painful extraction. "The first 5 years of our marriage, Nick, I didn't want to be pregnant." A stunned silence. Nick's eyes widened in shock, his breath catching in his throat. You did what?" he gasped, the words barely forming. Melissa nodded, a single tear tracing a path down her pale cheek. "Yes," she confessed, the dam of her secrets finally breaking. "I was enjoying our life, Nick. The international trips, the parties, the luxury lifestyle. I didn't want to be tied down, left behind. So I went on family planning. Secretly. Without telling you. I blocked the pregnancy myself." The revelation hit Nick like a physical blow. He sank slowly into the chair beside Amelia, stunned, speechless, his mind reeling. 13 years of longing, of silent suffering, of family pressure, of feeling like a failure. And all this time. Amelia reached out and clutched his hand, her touch a silent anchor in the storm of his emotions. Melissa looked down, her voice shaking, heavy with regret. "I only stopped. I only removed it when your family started putting all that pressure on us, on me. But by then it was too late. I couldn't conceive again. The doctor said it was unlikely." Her voice broke on the last word. She continued, her gaze shifting to Amelia, a flicker of the old resentment, now mingled with a strange kind of despair. "My worst fear, my nightmare, came true when I realized, Amelia. Your only hope. Couldn't conceive for you even after a year of being with us. That's when I became truly desperate. That's when I confronted you, Nick, remember? That day I screamed at you, accusing you of being the problem?" Nick nodded numbly, the memory surfacing through the haze of his shock. "When I left the house that day," Melissa confessed, turning slightly towards Dale, who remained silent, his head bowed in shame. "I went straight to Dale." Her voice cracked, the words almost choked out. I begged him to get me pregnant, Nick. I was so desperate for a child, for your child, or at least a child everyone would think was yours, that I—" She couldn't finish the sentence, but the implication was horrifyingly clear. The baby isn't yours, Nick. He's Dale's." Amelia gasped softly, her hand tightening on Nick's. Nick stared at Melissa, his face a mask of disbelief, pain, and a profound, soul-crushing betrayal. The son he thought he had, the one Melissa was carrying, was another lie in a mountain of deceit. "But it didn't stop there," Melissa continued, the tears flowing freely now, a torrent of guilt and self-loathing. We planned to kill Amelia first, get her and her baby out of the way, and then we planned to kill you, Nick, so Dale and I could take over your business empire, everything you'd built." Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion now, as if recounting a particularly gruesome story about someone else. "I hated her," she said, looking at Amelia, a flicker of the old venom still visible. I hated her for being pregnant for you when I had failed. I hated her for her youth, for her innocence, for not giving up on you, despite all the wickedness I threw at her. Nick's hands shook as he slowly, unsteadily, rose to his feet. You destroyed everything, Melissa, he said, his voice raspy with pain. You planned to kill me. Me. After everything, you planned to kill me. Tears streamed down Melissa's cheeks. I was blinded, Nick, she sobbed, blinded by envy, by jealousy, by a desperate need to have what I thought I deserved, what I thought I'd lost. I didn't realize what I truly had, until I was about to lose it all, until I had already destroyed it. The room fell into a heavy silence again, punctuated only by Melissa's ragged sobs. Nick slowly turned to Amelia, who clutched his hand tightly, tears in her own eyes, but a quiet strength in her grip, a resilience that was truly awe-inspiring. He looked back at Melissa, his face now cold, resolute, the pain giving way to a steely, righteous anger. "Enjoy your time behind bars, Melissa," he said, his voice firm, unwavering. "That's the only empire you'll be ruling now." Without another word, without a backward glance, Nick turned and walked out of that police station, Amelia by his side. This time, they walked not in sorrow, not in fear, but in survival. They had faced the monster, and they had won. The road ahead would be long, the scars would remain, but they had each other, and they had their son. And that, besties, was a new beginning, forged in the fires of an unimaginable hell. So, can you even believe the roller coaster we've been on? From the desperate yearning for a child to the insidious family pressure, Melissa's twisted manipulation of sweet Amelia, the shocking double pregnancies, the reign of cruelty, the elaborate deception, Amelia's terrifying kidnapping, the heart-stopping rescue, and finally, that jaw-dropping, earth-shattering confession in the cold, sterile interrogation room. Phew, I need a moment, and probably a spa day. Picture Nick and Amelia walking out of that police station, hand in hand. The weight of the world, or at least Melissa's suffocating darkness, had been lifted, but the scars, oh honey, those scars would take time to heal. They had their beautiful baby boy, a tiny beacon of hope in the aftermath of a storm that had threatened to consume them all. But life wasn't just going to snap back to normal, was it? There were legal proceedings, whispered gossip that would inevitably follow such a scandal, and the daunting task of rebuilding their lives, their trust, not just in each other, but in the world around them. Imagine the conversations they must have had, the late nights spent processing the sheer magnitude of Melissa's betrayal. Nick, coming to terms with the fact that the woman he had loved and trusted for over a decade was capable of such profound deceit, such calculated evil. The revelation that she had chosen not to have children for 5 years, while he and his family suffered under the illusion of infertility, must have been a particularly bitter pill to swallow. And then, the knowledge that the second baby, the one he had briefly, joyfully, thought was also his, was the product of yet another layer of her treachery, a child conceived with her accomplice, Dale, as part of their monstrous plan. It's enough to make your head spin and your heart ache for him. And Amelia, poor, sweet Amelia. Rescued, yes. A mother now, yes. But think of the trauma she endured. Coerced into a marriage against her will, emotionally blackmailed by the woman she considered a mother, subjected to unimaginable cruelty while pregnant, and then kidnapped, tied up, and threatened with death. The strength she showed, the resilience she displayed in protecting her unborn child and ultimately surviving, is nothing short of heroic. But heroes carry wounds, and Amelia's would be deep. The trust she had placed in Melissa shattered into a million irreparable pieces. The love she had for Dale, twisted and perverted into a tool for her own destruction. But through it all, besties, something beautiful and powerful began to emerge. The bond between Nick and Amelia, forged in the crucible of shared suffering, deepened. They had seen the absolute worst in human nature, but they had also found an enduring strength in each other. Nick, finally seeing Melissa for who she truly was, could now fully appreciate Amelia's gentle spirit, her unwavering loyalty, and her quiet courage. He had been blind, yes, but now his eyes were wide open. And Amelia, who had every right to be bitter and broken, found solace in Nick's genuine remorse for his initial obliviousness, his fierce protectiveness once the truth began to surface, and his unwavering love for her and their son. Their journey was a testament to the fact that even in the darkest of times, truth will eventually find its way to the light. Melissa and Dale thought they had woven the perfect web of lies, but as the old saying goes, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." And boy, did their web unravel spectacularly. Every lie, every manipulation, every cruel act eventually came back to haunt them. The recording device, that tiny piece of technology, became the instrument of their downfall, proving that no secret, no matter how carefully guarded, can stay hidden forever when justice is determined to prevail. And that, my darlings, brings us to the heart of the matter, the lessons we can all take away from this jaw-dropping, heart-wrenching tale. Lesson number 1, envy and jealousy are destructive poisons. Oh, honey, if this story teaches us anything, it's that envy is a green-eyed monster that will devour everything in its path. Melissa's envy of Amelia, for her youth, her potential fertility, and eventually her pregnancy with Nick's child, twisted her into something unrecognizable. It fueled her cruelty, her manipulations, and ultimately her monstrous plan to commit murder. She couldn't stand to see someone else have what she believed she deserved, or what she had, in her own twisted way, thrown away. That bitterness ate her alive from the inside out and led directly to her downfall. Remember, besties, focusing on your own blessings and celebrating others' successes is the only way to true happiness. Comparison is the thief of joy, and envy is its evil twin. Lesson number 2, patience, endurance, and resilience always win the day. Look at Amelia. That poor girl went through hell and back. Betrayal by a mother figure, forced marriage, emotional and physical abuse while pregnant, kidnapping. The list is endless. Yet, through it all, she held on to a sliver of hope, a fierce will to protect her child. She endured unimaginable pain and rejection, but in the end, her quiet strength, her resilience, saw her through. Truth and love, personified by her, and eventually by Nick's unwavering support, prevailed over deceit and hatred. It's a powerful reminder that even when things seem impossibly bleak, holding on, staying true to yourself, and having patience can lead you out of the darkness. Lesson number 3, deception has consequences, and lies always have a way of coming out. Melissa and Dale thought they were so clever, didn't they? They plotted, they schemed, they lied through their teeth. They built an entire empire of deceit. But what happened? It all came crashing down. No matter how long it takes, no matter how carefully you try to cover your tracks, lies have a nasty habit of being exposed, usually at the most inconvenient moment for the liar. The universe, or perhaps just good old-fashioned police work, has a way of balancing the scales. The truth, like a persistent weed, will always find a way to crack through the concrete of deception. So, lesson learned. Honesty, even when it's difficult, is always the best policy. The short-term gains of a lie are never worth the long-term fallout. Lesson number 4. True love shows in actions, not just empty words. Now, Nick wasn't perfect at the beginning, was he? He was a bit blinded by Melissa's act and the pressure from his family. But once his eyes were opened, once he saw Amelia's suffering and Melissa's true colors, his actions spoke volumes. He protected Amelia, he fought for her, he stood by her, and he showered her and their son with the love and support they deserved. That, besties, is what real love looks like. It's not just about whispering sweet nothings. It's about showing up, being a rock, protecting your loved ones, and fighting for what's right even when it's hard. Melissa talked a good game about love and wanting a family, but her actions revealed a heart full of selfishness and malice. Nick, in the end, demonstrated the true meaning of love through his unwavering commitment to Amelia and their child. And finally, lesson number 5. Call it fate, call it karma, call it divine intervention. Good triumphs over evil. When all hope seemed lost for Amelia, when she was tied up at the mercy of her captors, help came unexpectedly. The police, the recording device, it felt like the universe itself was conspiring to bring the truth to light and rescue the innocent. It's a comforting thought, isn't it? That even in our darkest hours, when we feel completely alone and overwhelmed, there are forces at work, seen and unseen, fighting for justice, fighting for the innocent. It's a reminder to keep faith, even when the odds seem stacked against you. So, besties, what a journey it has been. This story, with all its twists and turns, its highs and lows, its moments of pure terror and its glimmers of profound hope, really takes you through the ringer. It reminds us of the darkness that can lurk in the human heart, but also of the incredible strength of the human spirit, the enduring power of love, and the ultimate triumph of truth. As Nick and Amelia embark on their new life, free from Melissa's shadow, they carry the lessons of their ordeal with them. They know the price of deceit, the pain of betrayal, but they also know the profound joy of a love that has been tested by fire and emerged stronger. Their little boy is a symbol of that new beginning, a fresh start, a promise of a brighter future. And for us? Well, we get to close this chapter, hopefully a little wiser, a little more appreciative of the honest, loving people in our own lives, and a little more vigilant against the kind of toxic envy and manipulation that almost destroyed so many lives in this tale. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for coming along on this wild ride with me. It's been an emotional roller coaster, and I wouldn't have wanted to share it with anyone else. Until our next jaw-dropping tale, stay safe, cherish your loved ones, always choose kindness, and remember that even after the darkest storm, the sun will eventually shine again. Bye for now, besties!